hope you guys are having a wonderful day. Today I have a familiar face that you have been around my channel since October. I think it might have been. You probably know Tina B by now. If you haven't, I'm back with Tina B and to introduce in a minute, but they were going to be talking about how anyone can become disabled at any time. So if you would like to hear about that, turn on subtitles, subscribe, like this video, and leave a comment. So Tina, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I do. Well, thank you again for having me on. Anna, I just love what you're doing, and I'm so proud of you for just taking this message and running with it. And I just love hanging out with you and talking to you. So, yep, like you said, my name's Tina B, and I'm a disability inclusion educator, which means I like to teach other people about disabilities. And it's something close to my heart because my daughter Noelle was diagnosed with muscular dystrophy at 5 months old. And so I have been around disabilities for 14 years now. And I know what it's like as a parent to try to deal with it. And through a lot of amazing connections through the internet, I have met amazing people like Anna who have also helped enlighten me and help me understand more about the disability community. And it's just something that I just love to be able to teach and talk about as often and, as everywhere that I can. So thank you again for having me on.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm so happy we met too.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, I'm talking to you on the MDM, and when we do interviews, and stuff like that, and I'm seeing everything Noelle is doing too, because I follow her on Instagram as well.
Yeah, Noelle loves making new friends who also, are living life with a disability, and it gives her so much encouragement and hope and just like things that she could do that maybe she didn't even know that she could do. So she loves having friends like you.
Yeah, I'll have to send her my Adaptive Woman Society information because they have a teen edition that you might want to do.
Oh yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I'll DM her that.
Cool.
But my I know you were talking about how someone can become disabled at any time. Do you want to explain what the difference between someone who has a disability at birth and someone who obtains a disability is?
Yes, absolutely. So if somebody has a disability at birth, it is usually called a cognitive disability or a congenital disability. So like with Noelle, she was born with muscular dystrophy. So she's always had it. So she's never lived life in a body that wasn't affected and impacted by muscular dystrophy. And there's a lot of other diagnoses that are the same, that you've had them since birth. And then there is a whole slew of disabilities that can happen after birth, that can happen at any point in time, any moment. And the reason this has been brought up and has been something that I am now speaking on is because, again, it's directly impacted me. My younger brother was actually in a very terrible car accident 5 weeks ago, and he has been in a coma ever since. And he has now a traumatic brain injury. And that is a disability in and of itself that any one of us could sustain at any time. I mean, as simple as I knew a guy who was on a little electric skateboard, the ones with the one wheel,
right,
and something malfunctioned and it flipped out from under him and he fell on his head and he suffered a traumatic brain injury. His was very mild, but he still he lost consciousness. He ended up in the emergency room. He was actually traveling with his daughter in Texas, and he's from where I'm at in Colorado. And that was something where you would have never expected it, right? It was just, it's not like he was cruising down a mountain going 70. It happened. And so I really just started wanting to open people's eyes to the fact that disabilities can affect any one of us at any time. And that's also why we need to change the narrative about disability, because we can all be susceptible to it. And if we don't have more understanding, then like our lives, we would probably feel really scared and really terrified of obtaining a disability if we had no reference and no idea, what could happen or what that even means.
Right, I definitely agree. I have my disability from birth, but a lot of my adaptive women I remember obtained their before after this or both after this. So being part of that community has opened up my eyes because they're seeing the word from a able body and then a disabled person Mr. How he held was saying how he never in a million years thought he would be disabled. And he went on a whole different pathway, when he wasn't disabled, and then went down a whole nother wheelchair dance team business side of things. He was a dancer before her injury. So he created the worldwide wheelchair dance team now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he never thought in a million years he'd be doing that.
Yes. And so it's like a disability is not always the worst thing ever. You know what I mean? Like it impacts your life and it affects you and it is hard, but like, yeah, there could be amazing things that come from it. And especially once you kind of overcome it, it's like you meet a whole new group of people you never knew you would meet, and your life path could totally change. And it doesn't mean it's necessarily for the worst.
No, it's not. And I always talk about that too, because people will be like, don't you wish you weren't disabled? And I'm like, no, not really.
Yeah.
Somebody always, like, if they created a pill for me about 40 miles away, would you take it? No. I'm pleased with my life now, because it opened up my eyes to like who is really there for you and who in it. So it's like a built-in protection for men and bad people in my mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Let's see. I know in one of your stories you talked about how one and two become disabled. Yeah, become disabled at any time. Do you want to explain the significance of that and why society should take note of it?
Yeah, so that statistic, 1 in 4 adults are impacted by disabilities. I did get that off of Google, so I can't like quote it 100%, but I would say that it's true. That so if you have a room of people, and it may not be in that exact moment, but sometime in their life, they're going to be impacted by a disability. Whether it comes from an accident, it comes from a disease, it comes from aging. It's something that we all are, like I said, we're all susceptible to. And I think that society should take note of it because it's something that can affect everybody, right? Like we have a lot of different movements right now about, race or religion or sexuality and or men, women, voting rights, whatever. And those kind of things, like they affect certain groups of people, right? But disability can affect us all at any time. And there's no group that it may affect more or less or anything. And that's where I think society should take note and listen to people like you, like me, people who are trying to teach about inclusion and about disability, because it's like we want you to be educated so that if you find yourself in this situation or a family member, or if you have a child, you already know so much instead of being blindsided by it. It's like, I don't understand why, we're blindsided by something that can impact any one of us. I just think that society should take note, because there's so much information out there that we can learn, and we can learn from others. But instead, it's like we almost like close our ears and are like, nope, it's never going to happen to me. I don't need to worry about it.
Right.
And it's like, no, it could. And so you should learn about it.
Yeah, and I think that's also really important because my grandparents got older, they became disabled. Now my grandma is 87, I think, and can barely walk around, and her memory completely not there anymore. Like she's got dementia, like human memory. And so we often have to make decisions for her, and things like that. And also like the walking thing, he can't keep up very often anymore with everybody else. Or go out in public and hold the door open, but that's not possible for her. So Heidi really needs to up their name about accessibility, because I was at the aquarium. I went to an aquarium here where I am, and I saw the old lady walking down the stairs with her walker because he didn't know there was a ramp next to her. So I think that whole area could have been a ramp.
Yeah.
I was watching that lady thinking, oh my God, and people tried to tell her, it's just me the ramp on the other side, but I thought he couldn't hear.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, if you're going to build something, build it accessible for everybody, because then everybody can use it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because yeah, hopefully we're all going to get, age and be able to, continue to go to the aquarium. And if so, we should be able to access it. And if it was just built that way in the first place, you wouldn't even have to worry about it.
Right, I definitely agree. Do you think if we had more disability in students, people would be more likely to be more prepared for the possibility of becoming disabled?
Yes, 100%. I think if there was more inclusion, more education, there would be less fear surrounding it. So, another, like, taking my brother, for example, when I first went into his room after the accident and I saw that he was intubated, I already knew what it meant and what it was like, because I've already experienced it with Noelle. Like, she's been intubated,
Right.
and that's when you have a breathing tube down your throat and a ventilator's breathing for you. And I knew that you could only have that for so long before it starts to impact your throat and your vocal cords. And so, my first question was, how long will you keep that in before you give him a trach? And of course, the respiratory therapist was thinking, what is this girl talking about? Like, she doesn't even know. Why is she asking? But it's like, but I already knew. And so there wasn't fear around it. It was more like, I know what the next step is. I just want to heads up for when that might happen. And I think if there was more education in general about things, like I said, there would be less fear. I actually used to babysit a girl who, I think she had spina bifida, so she could kind of walk. She actually would go on like the trampoline. I don't know if she would walk or she would just like scoot herself. I can't remember exactly, but she would use a wheelchair when we'd go out places. So when I first found out that Noelle was diagnosed with muscular dystrophy and would have to have a wheelchair, in my mind, I thought about her, and I thought about like, oh, well, she had a great life. Like, she went, we would go to Elitch's, we would do anything. And I knew it was different, but I knew like we could overcome. So instead of a fear about it, like, oh no, I didn't look at all the like what she's not going to be able to do, or the hard things. And granted, it's been hard. Like, it hasn't been an easy journey by any means, but there wasn't this hopeless feeling. It was more like hopeful, like, okay, well, her life will be different, but she can still do things. And it was because of my own experience. And I would say that, students who find themselves in a best buddy program, or, and that's where you usually partner with a kiddo with, a kiddo with you did it. Yeah. You partner with a kiddo with like a intellectual disability or a physical disability, and you become friends and
Right.
you learn, like you both benefit from it, like both sides benefit. But I would say that if you experience that in high school and then you yourself had a child who was given a diagnosis, you would 100% be a little bit more equipped to be able to deal with that and handle it. So I do think that with more education, society would be more prepared.
I definitely agree, because not only would that education help, like, with diagnosis and everything, but also when you're out in the hospital and you're ill, you would know what to ask. Because
Yeah.
a lot of people don't know what to ask, which is why a lot of people require another person to come in with them.
Yeah.
And some people unfortunately don't have the resources to have another person with them. So they often misunderstand their diagnosis.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
100%.
that's not very good. And I always talk about how not only with many, but there also needs to be like disability education required in high school.
Yes.
Because they require everything else. They require a home act, robotics, industrial tech. Why can't they require disability education?
I agree 100%.
Yeah. I know your brother was in a car accident and you said that your professor has paying 15 in survival mode, like with no L. Do you want to explain this? Not being in survival mode?
Yeah, so I've experienced being firsthand in the hospital nonstop with a person who, like Noelle, she was her longest hospital stay. She was diagnosed with RSV. And so she ended up getting progressively worse. And that was when she ended up getting a trach and being on a ventilator. And she was in the hospital for 4 months. And I was right by her side the whole time. It was like my whole world stopped and I just had to give all of my attention to her. Later on in life, when I met my husband and we had I had my two step kiddos, my life couldn't stop anymore and I had to do both, but I still was always so close to the hospital. And now with my brother's injury, he is 3.5 hours away because they were actually on their way to move. They lived in the same city as me, but they were moving 5 hours away. And this accident happened an hour from their new home.
Oh my God.
So they had to fight for life into the closest hospital, which happens to be 3.5 hours from me. And so I was there right away, and I was there as long as I could be, obviously with children and everything, I couldn't just stay. And so it's been so hard to leave and have to come back and try to do normal life. And then, I get back as often as I can. And right now, one thing I'm really struggling with is in the last couple of days, he hasn't had the best updates. His prognosis hasn't sounded as hopeful. And so, when I'm out and about and seeing people, they mean well and they ask, like, how's your brother doing? But that's kind of a hard question because if the report isn't good, then it's hard to answer. And I'm like, I'm such a happy, positive person. And it kind of stinks to have to like be like, oh, he's not doing good. It's not good. And so I was actually thinking about how a better question or a better thing would be to just acknowledge, like, I'm thinking about you and your family, or I'm praying, if you are a person of faith, I'm praying for your family. Because sometimes that question of how are you doing, it's hard to answer if things aren't good. And I know that people, excuse me, I know people don't mean it to be negative, but just going through this process and me wanting to be a teacher, I'm like, oh, I could teach people that maybe instead of asking that, you can just say, I'm thinking about your family. Like, I'm here for you if you need anything. If you want to share an update with me, I'm here to listen. Because then it doesn't put that person in an awkward position where they have to answer. And so right now I'm kind of like having a hard time going and seeing people because I don't, it's like, I know they mean well, but that question is really hard. But also you can't not acknowledge it. You can't like
Yeah.
pretend like nothing's happening. That's also hard. And so that's where I was just thinking a better response is just to let them know, like, I'm thinking about you. I'm, you know, I'm concerned for you and your family, and then leaving it at that so that you don't have to answer.
Right. I mean, we how my brother been married. He and marrying him about a month ago, and her dad ended up being diagnosed with lung cancer. Like a week after that, and he passed away a week, about a month ago now. And we were not really open answering update. People have asking for update. We were like, well, every update we were getting was worse and worse.
Yeah.
To his passing, but I definitely agree. But that is really hard. But yeah, one, it made us upset, and two, like, it's not happy updates. Most
Yeah.
of the time. Yeah. My sister-in-law was like, well, I don't really know what to tell people. It's not on the mend, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And that's what I've experienced. And I've experienced too that like when somebody's walking through it, it's okay that they're sad and having a hard time. And like we have a hard time dealing with the tough emotions. We just want to like give an encouraging word and be like, it's gonna be okay, and then keep moving. But it's like, but sometimes it's not okay. And sometimes it is hard. And it's okay too. It's okay to acknowledge it. And for me, I've always been just not very in touch with my feelings, and so I just like get busy doing things. But through this season I'm really trying to acknowledge it, and and it's okay that there's pain and beauty, and there's heartache and and triumph, but it's okay to acknowledge both.
Yeah, I mean, that's what my brother and Lindsay are trying to do at the moment, trying to deal with the passing, but also continue with life.
Yeah.
We're all trying to do that. We never experienced something like that before.
Yeah.
No one ever that is that close has died in our family. So
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have more questions, leave them down below, and Bertina and I would be happy to answer them. Like this video if you might hit subscribe if you're new. I'm at like 650 subscribers.
Nice.
I would really like to see it moving up. And thank you so much, Tina, for being here, man. It was so much fun.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I will see you guys next week for another video.